This web component loads IndexedDB with a category 6 from WordPress. So if we go to the site and if we notice here there's nothing in IndexedDB, we refresh the page, you will see that category 6 has been formed and it has all the posts there. And if we want to now read that particular page, we have another web component that basically reads it. It is now looking for category 6 to read, and you can see there it is displayed. Now, to see how web components can have properties passed in via the attributes, we go back to the load page, we click in the dev server, if we go to elements, we will see here this is the initial category 6, but I'm going to now change this to 7. If we now go to the application, we will see that category 7 has been installed, and this shows that we can either programmatically or by just adding an extra custom HTML tag with this category load in posts for different categories using the web component. So now we've got 24, 7 and 6. And if we now go back into the read page, if we go into elements, we can change this from 6 to 7 and it reads it. Category 24, it reads it too. Now, provided we don't refresh the page, if we go to the network tab and go offline, we will see that if we go back to elements, for example, and we're just to change this to 6, how we can get it, because it's reading the data without refreshing the page from IndexedDB. So this is one example of combining IndexedDB with web components, and the client can very easily change programmatically what posts are stored simply by changing an attribute on the custom HTML tag. And if we go back here, we can see 6. We could, if we wanted to, if we initially wanted to load it several, we could add them in more. We could take this line and change it to 7, 8, and it will load those for us. So that is how we can use IndexedDB inside a web component. That doesn't need to be inside a web component, but we can load data into IndexedDB, our local database, read it even offline, provided we don't refresh the page. What we'll do now is look at how we can create a progressive web app using these web components and a service worker so that pages can be reloaded. So we saw in the demonstration just now how we could use IndexedDB while on a page to load in different data sets, and that would work even offline because we can use the browser's native storage facilities. We're now in WHTML site, and I'm going to click on the progressive web apps. It has the same two components but joined into one, so it both loads and reads at the same time. And if we look here when we're going to load in, it's going to have a service worker and a manifest file that will give it the progressive web app requirements, so that Chrome will detect that it's a progressive web app and will then offer the ability to add the icon to the home screen or to the desktop. So if we click here, we can get the add to home screen icon that will be on the desktop or the home screen of the mobile device. So this is now, if we look at the application tab, this is loaded in its own set of posts: 608, 852, 955, 608, 852, 955. It's reading it from the database. Now if we go into the network and go offline, whereas before we couldn't refresh the page because we didn't have a service worker to intercept that request, and we would have got network unavailable. If we now go in here offline and I refresh the page, it's going to load in the files. It's slightly slower in the dev console. It's loading them in. There it goes, and there it's loaded the data. So if we now go out of DevTools and just go back, and we're in the PWA, we refresh, it's loaded here. Go into F12, DevTools, on the Network tab, we'll go offline, refresh the page, it loads in the data. The service worker has now cached the page, so this time it's quicker. The first time round it hadn't cached the page. And if we go into the application, we will see that it's reading all these posts. So with a progressive web app that has a service worker, it can intercept a page refresh and not get the network not available, the dinosaur, and it can read data either from its cache storage here, which is where we're saving some pages, or it can read straight, as we are here, from the IndexedDB. When we were using our web components from before, the reason we couldn't refresh the page is we had no service worker, but while on that page, if we'd lost connection, we could easily have a drop down box to change categories to read different posts. While still on the same page, it could have loaded in a different data set. So that's how we can put in IndexedDB and progressive web app technology into a web component. And when we looked at the page here, we could see that if we wanted to load in categories, we can just change the attribute here, either by duplicating this or programmatically changing it. And we could also read that same page using a different component and specifying which category we wanted to read.